Hey guys, it's Paul here at Impulsive Culinarian, and in this video I want to talk to you about a great fall dessert. It's my pumpkin butter tart recipe. So a pumpkin butter tart recipe, it's fall, you have to do something pumpkin. And I already did pumpkin pie for Thanksgiving, so I didn't want to get wrapped up in that same old traditional spiel. So I thought I'm going to do something a little bit different. I love butter tarts. That's a serious addiction of mine. I remember growing up, scoffing a lot of them in one sitting. So I thought, what a great idea to take pumpkin and merge it with some butter tarts and do that for the fall dessert recipe in this series. Okay. Now, what we're going to be doing for the tart shells is I'm going to be taking my gluten-free pie crust recipe, exact same ingredients. We're just going to sort of modify that and use it in a muffin tin so we get those 12 little tarts to receive the nice pumpkin butter tart filling that we're going to put inside. Here's what you need. Okay, so for the gluten-free tart shell ingredients, here's what you're going to need. 1/4 cup of brown rice flour, 1/4 cup of Masa Harina, 1/4 cup of white rice flour, 1/4 cup of tapioca flour, and 1/4 cup of potato starch. 1/2 teaspoon of Guar Gum, 1/3 cup of coconut oil, 2 tablespoons of honey, preferably organic, 1 egg, of course, preferably organic, and 1 tablespoon of cold water. Now, for the pumpkin butter tart filling, here's the ingredients you're going to need. 1 cup of roasted pureed pumpkin. You can use canned stuff, guys, but it's so simple. Go get a fresh pumpkin. They're all over the place these days and super cheap. And figure out how to roast a pumpkin. Maybe I'll do a video on that one day, okay? So 1 cup of roasted pureed pumpkin, 1/2 cup of brown sugar, 1/4 cup of Dairy Free Margarine, melted, another egg, preferably organic, 1 tablespoon of corn flour, 1 tablespoon of tapioca flour, 1/2 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract, 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger. So this recipe makes 12 pumpkin butter tarts, so we're going to do that in a standard 12 muffin tin. Let's get cooking. Pumpkin butter tarts, delicious. Yeah, I know, because I've tried a few dozen myself, okay, while preparing for this recipe. We're going to be cooking this in a 12 muffin tin. First thing that you want to do is spray this with something that's got lecithin, okay, that non-stick spray. It can be the Pam if you're allowed to have that, or if there's another variety that you can indulge in, then by all means, check the ingredient list and get yourself a very non-environmentally friendly can of non-stick spray, okay? And fire away! I love the smell of propane in the morning. Okay, so now that your muffin tin is ready to go, let's make some tart shells. Now this is basically a rehash of my pie crust recipe. Now it's the exact same ingredients, okay? I'll put a link up for you here if you want to check it out. But basically we're going to go through it again, but instead of making a pie, we're going to put in, the tart shells. That's it, okay? So get all of your dry ingredients, that's all the flours and starches and guar gum, put that right into a food processor. Easiest way to do it. Now, I rarely do lots of exact measurings when it comes to teaspoons and tablespoons, but for this one, absolutely. Because the difference of 1 tablespoon of water can completely change the consistency of this, I measure everything exactly for the pie shell or variants thereof. So now what you want to do is get your 2 tablespoons exactly of honey into that food processor. So next you want to get your coconut oil and make sure not to melt it. Make sure to leave it in its solid state, solid white coconut oil. All right, get that in the food processor, 1/3 cup. Then you want to get your organic egg into the food processor. Okay, so basically everything except that 1 infamous tablespoon of water. Give this a blitz until it's all thoroughly combined. So when you got these ingredients, except for the tablespoon of water, you can see it's just a little bit dry, and that's exactly where you want it to be. You can clump it together, but it's not quite ready. When you're freehanding the honey, you're just squishing it in like that, it's so easy to go over by, 1/2 ounce of honey, and that changes it entirely. So once you're to this stage, get your tablespoon of cold water and add it in. 1 tablespoon cold water into the food processor. Blitz it up. Perfect. It just clumps together in very weird and awkward ways. That means it's ready. So let's get that out onto a piece of parchment paper or wax paper. So don't be stingy, guys. Make sure your parchment paper is really big, okay? And because you're not making just a pie, a 12-inch pie, you want to get 12 rounds of 3-inch size for your muffin tin. So make it as long as you can, as much counter space as you've got, and take that dough and transfer it on there. So once you got your tart dough out on the parchment paper, just clump it together into a nice formed disc. So there you go, a nicely formed disc or rectangle or square of pastry dough. Now we're going to roll that out with the help of some plastic wrap. Let's get a large sheet of that right now. So get yourself an equally large piece of plastic wrap, lay that on top, and get a rolling pin. Perfect. Roll away. So there you go. I spread it out as much as I feel comfortable with. It's less than a 1/4 inch thick, but still thick enough to be able to handle. So let's have a look. So there you go, guys. That's about as thin as I'm comfortable going. We still have to handle this stuff and get it into the muffin tin. So it's quite thin at the tapered edges, but that middle stuff is thick enough that I can handle it and get it over to my muffin tin. So let's make some rounds. So my weapon of choice when I'm making tart shells, okay, is a 3-inch wide circle cup, just a regular cup. You can use a coffee mug. Cookie cutters, of course, are the best because it's a nice tight edge, but a glass will do just fine. So start making some rounds. And there you have it. 12 equally sized 3-inch rounds ready to go into the muffin tin. Now let's carefully transfer these over. So the reason we're using parchment paper is because you want to actually use the paper to your advantage. Lift it up and start peeling off of that little round. So if you're careful enough and you just peel it off of the paper like that, you should have a nice big 3-inch round, easy enough to get it in your hand. Getting it in the muffin tin is a different story. So if you just lay it down on top of the muffin hole, like so, okay, and you let gravity help you and the non-stick spray, just push the edges, boom, and it should fall right into place. Sometimes you're not so lucky, okay? It doesn't work that well. This first one, they're ripped apart in my hands. So you use those little excess pieces and just fill in the gaps. So no matter how efficient your process, you are going to have some pastry dough left over. If you've got kids, that's a great activity. They can make little decorations to put on top of the tarts. Otherwise, you can freeze it and use it again for your next batch. Okay, clearly the hard part, all right, is done. So once you've got all of your 12 tart shells into the muffin tin, you want to get this in the freezer for the duration of your prep. So into the freezer it goes. All right, now that your tart shells are in the freezer, preheat your oven to 400 degrees. Now, if you've watched my Thanksgiving video series, you know that I'm a big fan of making roasted pureed pumpkin from scratch, okay? It's so cheap, it's easy. Go get a pumpkin, chop it in half, throw it in the oven, okay? Literally. You chop it in half and throw it in the oven for 40 minutes. That's it, okay? So I've got a supply of pureed roasted pumpkin. Now, if you don't, yes, you can use the canned stuff. You only need 1 cup, so you're not even using a whole can, which is why I wholly recommend making lots of other pumpkin stuff, okay? So get yourself 1 cup of pureed roasted pumpkin and set that aside. So you can definitely use a large mixing bowl for all of your filling ingredients. Personally, I like to use a great big 4-cup measure. Because of that lip, it's going to save my sanity when it comes time to pour into the little cups, all right? So I like to mix directly in there. It's big enough that I can actually whisk it all together. If not, you can use a large mixing bowl and transfer it into something that pours later on, whichever you like. So let's begin. 1/2 cup of brown sugar. So then comes the butter component of these butter tarts, okay? As you know, everything we do here is gluten-free, dairy-free. So I've got this dairy-free, also soy-free margarine product, which tastes delicious. It's the closest facsimile that I've found, which is good for every single variety of intolerance and allergy in our family. So there's the 1/4 cup. I'm going to microwave it till it's just nice and melted and then add it to the sugar. Okay, melted dairy-free margarine into the sugar. So mix together your margarine and your sugar. It'll help cool it off a little bit just before you add your egg. 1 egg into the pot. Go organic! So this one I did not use a tablespoon measure for, okay? But it's 1 tablespoon of corn flour and 1 tablespoon of tapioca flour. So next come the fall pumpkin spice ingredients, okay? Get yourself a 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon and 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger. Next goes in a 1/2 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. Now before adding in your pureed pumpkin, take a small whisk and really make sure that all of this is thoroughly combined. So once you're confident that there are no more lumps of flour or tapioca flour in there, then you can go ahead and add your pumpkin puree. One last whisk, so that is all thoroughly combined. Oh, smells awesome. Smells like pumpkin butter tart. That's exactly what it smells like, as advertised, yeah. All right, time to get the tart shells out of the freezer. All right, frozen tart shells. Give your mixture one last whisk and start filling them up. Good to the last drop, right? That should fill up exactly 12 of your tart shells, okay? Let's have a look. So there are my 12 frozen tart shells filled up with that mixture. They look fantastic. Wait till they're baked. Okay, let's get them in the oven. Okay, so get those in the center rack of your 400-degree oven for 20 minutes. See you in 20 minutes. All right, guys, so when 20 minutes is up, get those tarts out. So there they are, guys. They smell delicious. Fresh out of the oven. They're a little bit plump, but they're going to cool off, and the filling is going to shrink down below the sides of the tart shells. But they smell fantastic. And, unfortunately, in order to taste them, you're going to have to wait around half an hour. Let them cool. So now the hard part begins. You have to let these cool for 30 minutes, an hour or more, overnight if possible, okay? Then when they're not so fragile and they're nicely cooled, you can just get in there with a butter knife, pop them out and put them on a serving platter, and you're good to go. I did make some yesterday, and so there's not many left. There's only like a half a dozen of these, okay? Because they go quickly, and they're so easy to just pack and go and bring them into lunch or something like that. Look at those gorgeous pumpkin butter tarts, okay? With a nice golden, gluten-free, dairy-free crust. So easy and delicious, all right? The hardest part is getting the shells into the muffin tins. Now, my name is Paul from Impulsive Culinary, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, guys, please hit the like button. And more importantly, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel. There's always brand new content coming every week on Saturday mornings. Gluten-free, dairy-free recipes. Lots more to come in this fall series. And of course, Christmas is coming, so that's going to be a lot of fun too. I also look forward to seeing you on Wednesday nights when I open up a brand new bottle of wine and I get to share a bottle of my favorite vintage. I'm always discovering new stuff, and I'd love for you to join me live here on YouTube, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for my Impulsive Culinarian live weekly update. Okay, guys? I'll catch you in the next one. Let's have a tart. I've only had around 15 of these in the past couple of days. Hey, listen, when they're good, you eat them. That's the way it works. You try it. I'm sure you'll like it too.